Hello and welcome to the Ryan Mac Show on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. It is great to be back for another episode. This week, I'm going to keep it kind of short. I don't know how long ago. We'll see how we do. Um, big news. If you're a business owner in New York, you might want to take heed to what happened on Friday. Now, I say that, and unless you're Trump, then you've already been attacked. So, what happened on Friday? Let's get into it. I'm about to read you something, and I'm going to see if you can pick up on it, if it's a real article, serious notation, or something straight out of satire. Okay, just bear with me. If you haven't heard on Friday, by the way, Trump has ordered $1 million a day for a year. That's about how much money he has to pay for a crime committed that has no victim, no fraudulent charge whatsoever, but it's a New York law in the state. So, former President Trump civil trial in New York concluded with Judge Arthur Engoron, who looks about as bad as he smells, doesn't he? He orders Trump to pay whatever dollar amount is necessary to bankrupt his campaign. Quote, I, Judge Engoron, hereby order President Donald Trump must pay. Oh, hang on. Let me Google. Oh, I forget it. Whatever it takes to crush Trump's reelection. That's how much Trump owes. Case closed. There's the gavel. The civil trial that was initiated by New York Attorney General Letitia James. Really well done professionally. She's one of the best in New York. She argued that Trump received good terms. Who argued that Trump received good terms on a bank, thus endangering democracy. Trump receiving a slightly better interest rate on a loan 15 years ago was the death rattle of America, said Letitia. At last, with using Trump's conviction on a victimless crime, democracy has been saved. Quote, at last, with using Trump's conviction on a victimless crime to bankrupt one of the two major presidential candidates, democracy has been saved. You hear that? Democracy is saved. Nobody was intentionally harmed in this crime, thus democracy is A-OK. According to legal scholars, the case hinged on whether Trump had inflated the worth of his real estate holdings in order to secure more favorable loan rates. After careful review, Judge Engoron ruled that Trump's 63,000 square foot mansion in Mar-a-Lago, including multiple beaches, was worth approximately $8. As such, Judge Engoron declared the banks that had been nice to Trump, which clearly caused people living in New York terrible distress, and that could only be assuaged by Trump being forced to pay enough money to destroy his campaign. Clearly. So let's just get this straight. His properties in Mar-a-Lago are causing New Yorkers distressed. Got it. Okay, just so we're clear. At publishing time, Judge Engoron also ruled that Trump had to pay off national debt and to go pick up his dry cleaning. So not only does Trump has to pay off his fine for not having paid back his loans. Oh, wait, he did. Now he has to pay off the national debt and pick up the judge's dry cleaning. So here's that. So, serious or Babylon B? It's Babylon B. But just as serious, there was a judgment Friday. Crickets? Anybody? Yeah, you're right. Trump was ordered over $360 million. Yeah, million. Over $364 million in a fine. For what, you ask? For enriching himself, according to no bank documents everywhere. This according to the Post Millennial and other news outlets. I've got a whole handful here. But let's get to the beef of this law, okay? So in New York, I'm going to read you the law of New York. So there's this strange law that doesn't require really a victim in any case. It is used by virtually no one since its inception except for Kathy Hochul and her peons in New York who have campaigned endlessly on getting rid of Trump. This law, I'm going to read it, and if it sounds vague and it sounds ridiculous that anybody in doing business in New York would be charged in conducting this law illegally, see for yourself. So, what is the law? 6312 in New York. Whenever a person shall gauge, any person shall gauge in a repeated fraudulent or illegal acts, or otherwise demonstrate persistent fraud or illegality in the carrying on, conducting, or transaction of business, the Attorney General may apply in the name of the people of the state of New York to the Supreme Court of the state of New York a notice of 5 days for an order enjoining the continuance of such business activity or fraudulent illegal acts. Now, that right there has nothing in it related to any kind of meat and potatoes of what fraudulent activity is supposed to be described in this law. It goes on, canceling any certificate filed under and by virtue of the provisions of the section of 440 of the former penal law or section 130 of the general business law. The court may award the relief applied for or so much thereof as it deem proper. So $1 trillion, $1 billion, $34 trillion is our national debt. Why stop at 364 million? Why don't they just go to 34 trillion? Because that's about what he owes, according to them. Imagine having a business in New York. A business is a profitable, maybe about $1 billion a year. I don't know, major business. And your expenses, you're over half of your profit, okay? So, but you've got expenses in north of probably 400 million at least. Imagine getting hit with a fine just simply because the New York State doesn't agree with you and your policies of how you handle yourself. Granted, you've committed no crime whatsoever according to your own legal standards, and you've had no victim come forth and say, I was fraudulently acted upon by said company. You could be fined for whatever dollar amount the state determines is worthy. Do you understand that? Your business, say you make $1 million or make $1 billion, you're now 400 billion in debt of one fine. How are you going to survive as a business when that kind of law is enacted, simply existing? It doesn't make any sense. Now, I have a bunch of clips to support all this. Donald Trump has testimony in this case in which the banks were not frauded. No one was a victim. And they've testified he paid back his loans some 20 years ago and they made money on it. So how can you find somebody claiming that he fraudulently enriched himself and his properties in New York and his businesses when even the banks that loaned him the money didn't make that claim this whole time? Because if you're Democrat, you can do what you want. If you're a leading candidate for the United States office of president and they don't like your narrative, they don't like your conservative values, they don't like who you are. If you're a Republican, nope, they'll turn anything against you. They will find a crime. Instead of investigating a crime to find a person, they will find the crime by going after the person. Does that make sense? They will investigate the person in search of a crime. You are supposed to investigate a crime in search of the person committing the crime. That's how justice works. Not if you're Democrat, not if you're progressive. This is the way New York operates now. But what's amazing, and I have some clips here of Letitia James because she is a peach. I need to tell you right off the bat, she is lovely, professional, and all get out. But first, I think it's important to understand where the governor stands. After the case was ruled on, Governor Kathy Hochul who just my favorite, by the way, says New York businesses are different than Trump, have nothing to worry about after a $354 million ruling in civil case. So, Democrat businessmen in New York, explain how you're different than Trump. Well, you're not Trump. That's the only difference. She openly admits that unless you're Trump, you won't be targeted. She's openly admitting that Trump was the reason why she targeted him. They're not going after fraudulent businesses. They're going after Donald Trump. They don't want him near the Oval Office. They don't want him anywhere near the presidency. They don't want him alive. This is a long line of crushing him financially. If they can't do that through the appellate process, and ultimately the Supreme Court will just wipe all this out. If they can't stop him financially from running, their only plot left is to assassinate him. Let alone the financial ramifications of this, he'll bankrupt him. That's how Democrats want to handle their opposition, not through fair elections, but through political process of breaking you financially so that you give up. You bend to the will of the Democrat Party. That's how they operate. It's really a two-tier justice system. George Santos was expelled from Congress. Shithead of a guy, pathological liar, not really the greatest of admirable people, but nobody in Congress is. But if you're Robert Menendez, who's literally been charged with bribery, you can still be in Congress. George Santos, lied in the background, say who you are? Nope. You're expelled. How does that work? Well, if you're GOP, you're stupid, and you expel because Democrats told you to. That's how that works. So, getting back to this, Governor Kathy Hochul has all but admitted that her Attorney General civil case against Trump was a partisan affair. In a recent interview, she told New York business owners that they have nothing to worry about. The radio host asked the governor if New York business owners should be worried that they'll be too targeted. Nope, nothing to see here. If they can do that to the former president, they can do it to anybody. In response to the ruling, Trump said a crooked New York State judge working with a totally corrupt attorney general ran on the basis of I will get Trump. Before knowing anything about me or my company, just fined me $355 million based on nothing other than having a great company. Election interference, witch hunt. The list of political and financial assaults on one man has been amazing. It was just announced a while back that he had to force to pay $83 million in defamation for defaming the nut job E. Jean Carroll. Now, there's been multiple reports about Trump having an allotment of cash on hand, upwards of 500 to 700 million, aside from his other assets that he would have to eventually forfeit or sell in order to recuperate some of the financial penalties. At the worst, he'll pay it, but he has to put it in escrow while he appeals, and he has to pay like 10% of that of the bond, or $100 million or whatever it is that he has to hold, but he has to hold on to it. So while he appeals, he can't touch it either. But regardless, when there's no specific amount in a state law for one that hasn't been used since its inception, you can just write a blank check and say, yep, you owe $400 million. It's only because they came out recently in the years past that I've got $700 million in cash. Oh, ding! We're going to go ahead and fine him $364 million, or just off the bat. There has to be a way to go back and change that law to make it, okay, if you've defrauded so-and-so or such and such entity, this is the amount levied. There should be a very specific dollar amount finality to this law. But because there's not, Letitia James and corrupt politicians like Kathy Hochul can comprise together a corrupt bankrupting operation and go after any political opposition they want for any amount they want. Does that sound like America to you? If you're a business owner in New York, if you're anybody in New York that is up against this and wondering, gosh, what do I do? Do I leave New York? Yeah, you leave New York. You don't leave your business in New York. If they can target Trump for simply existing and having his business empire in New York, they'll target you, the mom and pop places down the street. Mark my word. So that was the lovely Kathy Hochul. She says that nothing to worry here. You will be fine. Now, earlier I said that Letitia James, the lovely, esteemed, but albeit dramatic Attorney General, she ran a campaign on going after Trump. Anybody that claims to be nonpartisan and all about the law, but yet you've got dozens and handfuls of videos showing your stupid face in the media, running your campaign on simply going after Trump, that probably isn't a good look when you show up in court and say, yep, nothing to see here. I am for the law. Here's about 1:15 of Letitia James just acting a fool.
The President of the United States has complained that I'm engaging in some sort of political witch hunt, that I've got some personal vendetta against him, that I campaigned against him. That is not true.
This illegitimate president who sits in the White House. That president, because he's not my president, he's an illegitimate president. His days are numbered. His days are numbered.
We've got to get ready to mobilize, and we've got to get ready to agitate and irritate until victory is won, but more importantly, until Trump is defeated. We will all rise up and resist this man, and ultimately we'll bring him down. This illegitimate president, I'm going to give you the same level of respect that you gave to President Obama, and that is absolutely no respect at all. Donald Trump has got to go. Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Donald Trump has got to go. Hey, hey! Ho, ho! And the days of Donald Trump are numbered. Lock him up! Lock him up! What? Lock him up! What? Lock him up! What? Lock him up! What?
That is not true.
Boy, she sounds like a peach, and she sounds like somebody who's above the law and above the drama of not being political in any way, not biased at all as Attorney General. She made her campaign, by the way, all about going after Trump. Sounds like she'll be fair in trial. Here is she again on CNN, a clip of CNN played. Now, she's a little more subdued, but it's still the same thing. She is a political hack and should be disbarred from New York State. She should not be allowed to rule on cases in which she has a political affiliation. This is the most corrupt state aside from California. These are some of the most sickening and disturbed people on the planet. And like Trump said after his election in 2016, at the end of his presidency, they're not after me. They're after you. I'm just in the way. He's just in the way. If they can do this to him, imagine what they'll do to you and I. He has the assets. He has, for now, the financial means to fight. You and I don't. We will be on the streets in a cardboard box the minute the left comes after us. That's the way they operate. They don't operate legally. They don't operate fairly. They operate to break you so that you'll comply. They want a one-party system in this country. But here she is again, more subdued, but just listen again. And then there's a reaction on CNN from a former attorney of Steve Bannon also giving his take.
I will never be afraid to challenge this illegitimate president. He should be charged with obstructing justice. I believe that the president of these United States can be indicted for criminal offenses. I will be shining a bright light into every dark corner of his real estate dealings. And every dealing demanding truthfulness at every turn.
Would those comments have any legal basis for a dismissal here?
I don't know about a dismissal. I'm very, very troubled by them. I think they're completely unethical. I think it's. I actually have spoken with a fellow who's written a book on prosecutorial misconduct, and he's assured me he's going to include a chapter next time on the kinds of statements that are appropriate ethically and inappropriate ethically in the course of an election campaign for elected officials, for judges and prosecutors. I think they're very troubling comments. The government is held to a different standard. And the public generally believes that when they say something that it's accurate. We can't have people targeting particular citizens when they're running for office, especially when there's been no investigation and certainly no finding yet at that time of any culpability. I think they're very troubling. This is part of what I think is driving the polls, in addition to policy issues. I think that fundamentally American people demand fairness, and they don't want to see people targeted, even if they're, sort of larger than life figures like Donald Trump.
Now, remember, that's CNN, okay? That's the reaction from CNN asking that question. Now, how can... It's even harder to fathom the type of behavior that's going on around the country in these cases. You have the Georgia fraud case of Fannie Willis screwing the life out of her employee, and then admitting, running a campaign saying, oh, nope, you're going to need a DA that doesn't screw her employees. You need a DA who fights for Georgians. And then she's literally on trial talking about her vacations that she paid back and campaign money that she stole. These are all by design to financially break him. And if they can't, at least they've destroyed his character. But the problem is, every time they levy down a final ruling or a financial obligation that he has to pay, his poll numbers shoot up. We will literally run through the fires of hell to vote for this man to become president again. That is exactly what will happen. The more you envelop him in these financial twist-ups, these cases, we know that they're fraudulent. We know that they're fake. We know that they're by design to crush him politically. The more popular he becomes. Americans will only tolerate so much, and then we push back. The last time we took only so much and we pushed back, we ignited a civil war. We said, you know what? We're kind of tired of the slavery thing. Everybody should have their own thing and kind of exist co-equally. Southern Democrats, nope. We still want blacks in chains. So what happened? We shot a bunch of people because they wouldn't get on board with allowing people to exist freely in a nation. One nation. I'm not saying that a civil war like that is going to happen again, but there's a cold civil war brewing, and it's not going to end well for the people who don't like guns, who don't like men and women being men and women, and who don't like an opposition to their voice of opinions. This is literally how our founders decided that we should be as a country. People of one uniting theme, being an American, being free and having liberty and individualism. They don't want that. The progressives want collectivism, and they want to be the ruling class, and you're supposed to sit down and shut up. That is how they operate. They don't like your freedoms. They don't like you free thinking and being able to decide on your own what you get to do. They want to tell you and rule you for you. They want to tell you what to wear. They want to tell you what to look up online. They want to tell you what news to watch. They want to tell you who to vote for. And a little bit, I'm gonna show another clip of a former or congressman, I think, currently. He was in the January 6th committee. He was the head of it, Benny Thompson. He is not alone in his thinking. These people hate conservatives. They hate opposition. They don't like freedom of thought. He says in this clip that he doesn't understand the support Donald Trump has. Really? It's not hard to figure out the support. We hate progressivism, the destruction of our country, the freedoms being taken away. One man single-handedly being destroyed because you hate what he stands for. That's what we hate. That's what we support. He's fighting for us, like him personally or not. He might be kind of a D-bag to his wives. I don't know. I don't care. I didn't vote for him because he's some upstanding citizen. Well, but you should vote for character. Listen, I got my bag of skeletons ready to go in my closet coming out. I voted for his policies. Is he the most conservative on everything? No. But do I think he has the best interest at our time right now? And policy-wise, what we need to take back this country from the radical left? Absolutely. There is no one else on the planet that will take on the left in their swamp like Donald Trump. And he showed it over and over again. Like him personally or not, he gets things done, and he's going to have a harsh behavior after it. He's going to come with ferocity. No matter how hard you punch him, he's going to hit you 10 times back. Just remember that. He will continue to fight for everyday Americans versus the left, who can't stand your guts and value illegal immigrants over everyday citizens. Is that how you want to vote? You want to vote for people who stand up for freedom, individualism, and liberties? Or do you want to vote for a party that doesn't give a shit about you and cares more about illegal immigrants coming to the country than you? I'm just saying. That's where we're at. But it shouldn't be this hard. But unfortunately, the country is so polarized politically that every conversation is wrapped around politics. All politics are local. But this country has become so polarized is because these individuals who are in power currently, and for the past decades, there's only one party truly in charge, the establishment. They hate the American people. But we have to start standing up. We have to start fighting back. Now, I can sit here and give you all kinds of conservative viewpoints on this trial, and there's some legit number crunching that you might be concerned about. There's, his 91 total counts against him. I don't know if he's going to be able to drop all of them throughout the course of these cases. But it's the narrative you have to pay attention to. This is not a legitimate investigation of did he do anything wrong. This is an investigation of I'm going to screw Donald Trump's chances of returning to the White House any way possible through financial means or political means of attack. I'm going to do it. But here, I can read you numerous headlines all day long about how the opposition agrees. This is terrible. But Politico is the best place to go if you want to hear what the pulse of the Democrat Party is. Okay? There's a piece in Politico, and the headline is, Can Trump pay? What if he doesn't? Here's what to know about Trump's massive civil judgments. So let's go through these. All right, as you know, the 7-figure verdict, the 8-figure verdict, and now a 9-figure verdict have been levied against Donald Trump. Trump has been hit with another $354 million penalty on New York businesses fraud so far has been the most massive. He's on the hook for over $440 million in civil judgments as he heads toward the Republican nomination as he prepares for one or more criminal trials this year. You gotta like how these lefties word the articles they write. That really is comical. Those criminal cases could put him in jail. In the meantime, his escalating troubles in his civil cases are packing a devastating financial punch. Are they, though? If he appeals and wins, then he owes nothing compared to what he is supposed to owe. Even for a man who claims to be a billionaire. This is like reading if you were working at NPR. He claims to be a billionaire. $440 million is potentially crippling amount of cash to turn over. Can Trump afford the judgments? Next on NPR. When does he have to pay them? And what happens if he can't? Or if he outright refuses? Like, is he going to refuse? What, are they going to throw him in prison? So this whole list goes on. This is a Politico. You can find it at Politico. Here's what it means. Can Trump afford to pay? Well, Trump's company isn't public. He's famously refused to disclose. He's under no obligation to release his taxes. He doesn't have to. Politicians don't have to. It's always been a thing they did, but they don't, under no circumstances are they obligated to release anything financially. So his cash flow situation is shrouded in mystery. Really? A shroud of mystery, huh? Okay. Noted. Even if he has the $440 million in cash on hand, it's far from clear that he does. Paying the judgments could wipe out his account since Trump himself has placed his cash reserves in the ballpark of that amount. Trump claimed in a deposition last year that he had substantially in excess of $400 million in cash on hand. That is the single reason why I believe Tish and New York went after him, because they heard, oh, he's got $400 million in cash. Let's go get him. They quoted him. Now, this is out of context because he's probably just ballpark, and He may have more than that. He may have less than that. Who knows? We have, I believe, 400 plus and going up substantially every month. My biggest expense is probably legal fees, unfortunately. But it's unclear. It goes on whether that number is accurate. The deposition, after all, was just part of the very lawsuit in which judge found Trump has repeatedly inflated his net worth. Who the hell cares if someone inflated their net worth? If there was no victim, if the banks testified that nobody was a victim in this, who really suffered? I can go and list a property item of whatever value I think. Let's say I have a mansion to sell, and I think it's in upwards of, I don't know, 100 million. Okay. And it's probably in the worst area of town. I still think it's 100 million. Okay. It's 10 bedrooms, whatever. I have to go to the bank and ask for whatever amount, for a loan or whatever to do any operation with it. If you're a businessman and you go in there and I value my assets and at 100 million, okay, the bank can go, okay, well, we'll do our due diligence. If they come back and say, well, your assets are worth like $8, you may have inflated yourself to look stupid, but the bank is not itself going to take that and go, yeah, sure, we'll give you a $100 million loan. No, they're going to do their background check and they're going to do their financial work on what the actual worth of your assets are. That's how that works. They're not going to just take your face value, because a lot of times we're more biased than the actual person doing the appraisal. If I say my house is worth $100,000 and it's only worth 30, according to the bank asset, the appraisal, I'm not going to get $100,000. I'm going to get close to 30. That's not how this works. Now, if the bank comes back and says, yeah, he's paid back his loan and then some, we made money on it. Case closed. But no, he's still going to have to pay the $100,000. Why? There's no crime committed. I just told you, I just think my property value is worth $10 and you think it's worth nothing. That's not a crime. They do their due diligence and then they tell you what it's actually worth doing the work. Your biased valuation of your own assets means nothing to the banks. They have to do their work. But everybody on the left thinks, oh, he's not worth anything. He's going to pay all this. It doesn't matter if he says he's worth something or not. The banks will do their due diligence on the background. He's lost as a businessman. He's won as a businessman. He's got a lot of properties. He's gained a lot of wealth over the years. He's lost out on some properties that were a high risk and low reward. He's also made a lot of money on things that were a great risk. He pays back his loans. And when he takes a loss, that's a financial benefit to him, because now there's a tax bracket loophole that he doesn't have to pay taxes on those losses. That's how the system works. Democrats don't understand that. He's enriching himself. This is fraud. No, it's not, because the banks will actually do their homework. So now it goes on. Politico talks about what happens if you resist paying. If you don't pay, you'll probably spend time in jail. If there's an actual, system in place, that there's a fine levied, you'll have a consequence if you don't actually pay. But here's what they break down. In a civil fraud case, which is in New York State, because they have to pinpoint it, if Trump can't post the funds or get a bond, then the judgment would immediately take effect and a sheriff could begin seizing his assets. No shit. It's any life situation. If you don't pay a fine levied by the court judgment, they will start going after you for said fine. This isn't rocket science, but Politico lays it out here like, okay, well, what can we do if Casey doesn't? He's not going to end up paying a dime for any of these. He'll pay legal fees for having to fight, but he's not going to pay a dime for any of them. So this is, I don't know who's Carol's, Roberta Kaplan, who's another peach. She's E. Jean Carroll's attorney. She's quoted at this. I think he's going to have to pay, and whether it requires him to sell or to put up a lien on something to get a loan, that's his problem, not ours. He's going to have to pay. This is what she told CNN last month. The judge, Kaplan added, will use judgment enforcement mechanisms to make sure that he pays. He's not going to pay the $83 million to E. Jean Carroll, not after the recent allegations and video evidence of her just handing out money like it's left and right after winning. Can Trump delay payment by appealing the verdicts? So this is where, and I have a comment here asking this question. So will he win on appeal? We're going to get into that. All right. So in this case, according to Politico, the article I'm reading here, he can't delay payment. It goes into escrow, is what I heard also, until they appeal the process. They can't delay payment. In all three cases, he has to put up money in an escrow with the court or get a bond while he's appealing the verdicts. With a civil fraud verdict, which Trump has vowed to appeal, the amount to be posted is set by the court. So while he's in the appeal process, the money has to be put up in escrow or a bond has to be set by the court of some amount, which is typically 120 to 125% of the judgment, to account for the additional post-judgment interest that accrues during the appeal. So there's a whole other process that's pretty typical and standard for appealing processes. The money doesn't just not be paid. It has to be put away so that in the event he loses the appeal, it's still able to be accessed. So with the verdict last year for E. Jean Carroll, Trump has appealed. He turned over $5 billion to the court, which is about 111% of the judgment. For the more recent verdict against E. Jean Carroll, Trump vowed to appeal also the $83 million. 111% of that judgment would be $92 million. So he has to put up $92 million of that 83. So there's 100% of that, over 100% of that going up to an escrow. Trump then has a 30-day window, which after that Carroll verdict, either to pay cash into the court's escrow or get a bond while he appeals. If he chooses to file, he will likely have to pay a 20% deposit or put up collateral, but then it would come down to fees, interest, and blah, 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 all the expensive stuff in the long run. So that's the process in which the appeal takes place. He has to put the money up and or bond and pays percentages on that to the court during that whole appellate process. There's a lot of money changing hands at some point. So the next question that it asked, does he personally have to pay the verdicts? Could he get his campaign or super PACs or the RNC to pay, according to Politico? Some of his legal fees actually has been raised for his campaign. But the courts don't have restrictions on the sources of funds used to pay judgments. So he actually could tap other resources to fund his money for his personal accounts. So there's no restrictions. It goes on to say that he could transfer assets from the Trump organization to himself in order to help satisfy the judgment. So that the Trump empire could be used as a resource in order to help pay for his legal fees. Another comment. I'd sue these assholes instead of having to pay a fine. And as the New York judges claim, Trump has a great lawyer. Yeah, he's got many great lawyers. So there's always an endless supply of suing because he's being sued. He might as well turn around and countersue. But that's under that New York state law where there's no victims, so you can just sue for whoever you want. All right, so he could transfer from his organization. Could he use his political vehicles to pay? Would be a far trickier. There's a ban on using campaign donations for personal use. It's unrelated to a campaign, kind of like Fani Willis said she did when she said, I had campaign money I took out and I just took out cash and set it aside for myself. She openly admitted that she took campaign money and took it for herself. How do you charge for a alleged lie? I'm just saying, while she's in court. So campaign funds are not to be used for purposes regardless of whether PAC is the decision maker. So his PACs may not be able to afford the judgment since he's been using them to pay lawyers all over across the globe there. So these are some of the questions that Politico raised. Some of them are valid, but usually Politico is all over the place on their spectrum. There's a playbook on there that actually is really good too. The Politico playbook that's literally the heartbeat of the left and how they operate. You should go check it out. But ABC News also another one that's fantastic at putting out articles that hit jobs. On the witness stand last year, Donald Trump proclaims, "I have a lot of cash." After Friday's eye-popping penalty in the New York civil trial, he's going to need it, and maybe more. That's all these pieces are. They go on to just list all the same things that's wrong with Trump, and Trump this and Trump that, and he must pay this, he must pay that. There's a whole lot of money being moved, and it's not going to end with him ultimately paying. I believe that he's going to either win the appeals at the state level, or he'll appeal all the way to the Supreme Court. Eventually, none of these will actually be paid. He's going to come out on top, I believe. This is just my opinion. I'm not some legal analyst. I think as you're starting to see the exposure of these idiots being stupid in their prosecution attempts and wildly throwing out videos of themselves saying stupid shit, you're going to see more and more higher courts tossing these out because you're like, you know what, you're not a real thing. You're not prosecuting him on any legal basis. You're prosecuting him because you have a personal vendetta against him. That's what this all comes down to. They're going to see that. For the left, it's so easy to predict how stupid they are and how they're going to be. Because if you're going after Trump politically, you have this problem with him, okay? You want to take him out. You want to kill him, financially ruin him. You probably want to clean up your own history of saying stupid shit against him so that you don't look like a dumbass in court when you go to prosecute him. You can't laugh it up. But liberals don't know how to be serious in court because they're too stupid and they'll get caught saying stupid things. So here's an example of what I mean by liberals doing stupid things. So I'm going to play a few more of Letitia James's more serious press release on it. But here is liberals doing stupid things always. And a montage, and it's a video of outside Trump Towers in New York. You can't make this up. So after his verdict was handed down, they continue to mock him in every which way. So it's about a 2-minute clip. We'll watch all of it, and you can hear the insanity that the left is in this clip. You can't make this up. Check it out.
Come one, come all to the disgraced, one-term, twice impeached, quadruply criminally indicted, ex-President's Day liquidation blowout. Everything at bargain prices. Come one, come all. We gotta raise $350 million. We gotta pay New York State. We gotta raise another $83 million. We gotta pay E. Jean Carroll. You want love letters from Kim Jong-un? We got them. You want cans of suntan spray? We got them.
Top secrets for sale. Make an offer. In desperate need of cash. Pay by the box or individual folders. Make an offer. Desperate. We desperately need cash.
Everything must go.
Everything must go.
Free pardon with every purchase over $10. Everything must go. Including Don Jr. and Eric. Including who?
I can't. There's about a minute left. This is what happens when you have a banana republic. If I were Trump, as much as he spent as long time, I mean, he's a New York Democrat for years. He's a New York businessman. New York was his home for a long time, and he helped build and rebuild parts of Manhattan and New York because the Democrats in charge back then didn't really want to, and they didn't really care. Some of the skylines in New York you see today are as a result of Trump's team and real estate prowess come to light. He built some of the skyscraping shadows you see in New York. He helped redevelop New York as it was falling apart. But that video is an illustration of what you see when we have a banana republic in this country. If I were Trump, I would take everything out of New York. I know his business, his headquarters is in New York. If I were to tell New York, if I were him, I would tell to New York, go screw itself, and I would take it and go to Florida where he's at. I would build an empire in Florida and keep it in Florida. Get the hell out of New York. Take the business like Elon. Elon thought it was a great idea to get his Tesla headquarters and Twitter eventually out of California. It is a very terrible idea to be in a blue state as a business owner. It's even more of a terrible idea if it's a business owner in a blue state who disagrees with the progressive left. Elon did it, and he's not even conservative. He took his headquarters to Texas. He's doing it with Twitter also. He's getting the hell out of California. Trump needs to do the same thing. If I could tell Trump one thing during all his legal problems right now, aside from all the drama that he himself takes on, because he loves drama himself, get the hell out of New York. It'll take time, but move your business out of New York. The lawsuit already blames and bans him from New York for 3 years. Do it. Give them the middle finger and move out of New York. Take your money, take your empire, take everything out of New York. You'll save a shit ton of money going to Florida in taxes. Anybody who's a prominent business owner in New York who does not like what's happening in the justice system in New York, get out and go to a conservative state who actually respects the right for you to build an empire yourself. Get out of these shitholes in Democrat states and cities who don't care about you. If you disagree with them, they will crush you financially. Get out while you can. All right. From one set of idiots to another, here's Benny Thompson of the January 6th failed committee discussing, he doesn't understand how anybody could support Trump.
I'm not surprised, but I'm really disappointed that there's still so many people in this country who somehow see this person as a viable choice to be the Republican nominee for president of the United States.
Really, Benny? You don't understand why anybody can see him as a viable choice? Have you seen the brain-dead bag of oatmeal? The sack of monkey nuts in the White House currently? The drooling, falling down steps, baby sniffing Biden? With a coke-addicted son? Have you seen him? Not exactly heaping pile of praise there. Benny, another idiot in Congress, has no idea what everyday Americans who are tired of this shit understand and see. We see right through the garbage in Washington, D.C., and the movement, the grassroots movement, is taking over. This will come to an end. You have to stay vigilant. You have to stay patient. The movement is growing, and it will happen. Outside of Washington, D.C., there is no way in hell they will stop it. This is going to be the longest train of all trains. But we have to be smart about it, and we have to vote accordingly. And you can sit there and say, well, why should I vote? Because there's almost fraud. It doesn't matter. Who cares? There's fraud in every election. You have to get out and vote. Vote. Take 10 people. That's the rule of thumb. Take 10 people and vote. And vote principle over people. Don't vote for somebody who says all the right things to you. Check them out. Do your research. Make sure you vote principles and voting record over people. We need more God-first people in our government. We need more conservative people in our government. The ones who actually adhere to the founding documents and our founders who will work for us, not the other way around. We don't work for Washington. Washington works for us. They need to understand that and know that. They need to fear it. Now, one group standing up for Americans outside of New York and in New York City is a group of truckers for Trump. I heard earlier this morning, Glenn Beck had some of them on in his radio show, call in and talk about it. There's a movement right now surrounding New York that truckers are not going to be running goods and services through New York City. They are protesting this fraudulent ruling, and whether it has a substantial impact or not, it shows the power of the American people. If you hurt New York City's intake of goods and services through trucks, so primarily it's a nightmare to get into New York City with an 18-wheeler. But if you hurt them by 25, 30%, that's a hole in New York City that they can't recover from. Just like the Target, just like Bud Light, we know how to hit them where it hurts financially. You want to play financial games with Trump? We can do that tenfold. We about bankrupt Bud Light into switching their campaign back to American people who like beer, not men who try to be men and women, not women and men who try to be men and women. Little fanboys. When you piss off the left, they lose money. And when you piss off a conservative, we gain wealth and money. because we take our money elsewhere. In New York, truckers are boycotting, and that's just the start. More and more places are going to start putting their wallet where their mouth is and leaving Democrat places. And that's the sign of the movement working and the left crumbling. They're not going to be able to stop majority of the country from saying, you know what, I've had enough of this. But it starts not only the ballot box, it starts with your feet, with your mouth. Start standing up and start moving. I don't want to suggest balkanizing the entire country and splitting it to you get most conservative states versus most liberal states. But that's what it takes to send a message to Washington that, you know what, we might as well just be in a separate nation. Secede from the union, because that's what it's going to take for these idiots to shut up. And we have to push back. But so that's a good thing for truckers for Trump. Now, on a more serious note, it's very serious. Here is Letitia James's dramatic yet serious response to the ruling. This is right after it happened, and she's posted these all over Twitter, where she just has these well-written responses to anything that she does in court. But here's the most serious response yet. She thinks she's got him this time.
Today, justice has been served. Today, we prove that no one is above the law. No matter how rich, powerful, or politically connected you are, everyone must play by the same rules. We have a responsibility to protect the integrity of the marketplace. And for years, Donald Trump engaged in deceptive business practices and tremendous fraud. Donald Trump falsely, knowingly, inflated his net worth by billions of dollars to unjustly enrich himself, his family, and to cheat the system. Donald Trump may have authored the art of the deal, but he perfected the art of the steal.
It doesn't get any better than that. She couldn't even written it better than that. This is the way they operate. They have one game to get Trump. We'll see how this plays out in the legal system. If we had a fair justice system, he wins an appeal because there's no victim in New York. If we had a fair justice system going up to the appellate level in Georgia and up to the Supreme Court level, maybe. Look, I'm not making any promises to the Supreme Court anymore. But if we had a fair justice system as which our founders put in place, that this is how America was built, that we could rely upon the courts to knock down some of this garbage, Fulton County wouldn't happen. New York City's fraud case wouldn't happen, wouldn't see the end. I don't know what's going to happen on these appeals. It's to remain to be seen how much he'll actually have to end up paying. There's going to be some ramifications, of course, anytime you fight legally. But this is going, yeah, she loves the sound of her own voice. Yeah, she does. She loves her some Letitia James. There's a lot more videos of her sounding like that, too, and she loves to hear herself talking so poetic, just like Kamala. But that's how they play the game. If you can't crush him financially, you're going to crush him politically. But it's not working politically because, as you see, every time he gets levied a fine, a ruling, a judgment, a slap in the face, his poll numbers continue to rise. So this is what you're going to see going forward. The appellate decision, he may have to put up, like I said earlier, a bond. He's going to have to pay something as you go through the system. He's going to pay a lot of money, but that's their end goal, to bankrupt him. I'm laughing at the comment. Yeah, she's very angry. She's a very angry person. Next episode I do, I'll go after Fani Willis. And I know this was kind of more recent, but I'll go back and hit her up too because she's got a bunch of videos that are pretty funny too. But to wrap this one up, this is just another example of what you see the left's operational status partake. They will crush you financially, they will crush you politically, and they might even crush you physically. Whatever it takes to stop someone that they don't like from doing something they don't like, they will. You've seen them go after him financially. You've seen them go after him with lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. You'll see them go after it with the Russia hoax and the collusion thing. That fell on their face. They will start falling on their faces one by one. It's already happening with these other court cases. Fani Willis's escapades is another one that just fell off on its face. They're going to start tearing apart. And once that starts falling apart, they couldn't get him while he was in presidency. Okay, they couldn't stop him with the Russia pee-pee tape. Remember that? The Russia pee-pee tape. Who wants a video? So this might be of a tangent, but who wants to see a video of anybody peeing on hookers? I know, Adam Schiff does. They tried to get him on some weird fantasy in Russia, and that didn't work. They're tying him to Putin. I think I had another video. I don't know if I have it on here or not, but they blame him for everything. They will blame him for everything, and I do. Anyway, but that's the name of the game. They will turn to you and do investigation. And when they can't investigate you enough, they'll break you financially. Even if they can't win those cases, they'll tie your money up financially forever so that you can't do anything to get out of it. And then if they can't break you financially because of they're showing their ass to the world, they'll try to do it physically. What do I mean by physically? They might make you disappear. They might start disappearing people. We wake up tomorrow and Trump's been disappeared. You'll kind of know what happened and where he went. Oh, where'd Trump go? Maybe he got disappeared. I don't know. Don't know. He doesn't have to pay anymore. Just disappeared. That's when you should worry as a country, when we start disappearing our opposition. I know we talked about it a while back when maybe you should start disappearing terrorists in other countries. Maybe they'll get the message. The left will send their message. We have to be careful about that and be ready for it, because there's a lot of inside jobs over the years in which the government operated and started disappearing people it didn't like. JFK. Just saying, tinfoil hat. When the government and the deep state don't like you and they can't break you financially, they'll just start disappearing you. That's how this works. All right. I got a few more here to show you to wrap up on the fact that they're blaming Trump for everything and anything. This is kind of related, but this is the fact that they're blaming him. We've heard them blame him for something he wasn't involved in, like Ukraine, the border wall. He's not even president, and they're still blaming him for the border that he tried to fix and solve because Republicans didn't want to pass the bill, so now it's Republicans' fault. They blamed him for Russia collusion, which he wasn't doing. They blamed him for numerous times that he never committed anything. That's what the left does. They blame him. It's Trump's fault. Trump did it. Trump did it. Here's idiot Ted Lieu, congressman. I think he's, congressman. Representative Ted Lieu. Ted Lieu, whatever. Here he is blaming Trump for the death of Navalny. Alexei Navalny was the opposition candidate in Russia going against Putin. He was running against Putin, another country that, again, doesn't like their opposition. Seems familiar, right? Democrats. Putin is a maniac. He's a destroyer of people. He disappears people. He disappeared Navalny. Now, we don't have evidential proof of that, but it kind of seems that way given the fact that Navalny just woke up dead in a prison that he's been staying in over a year. Because why? Again, he was trying to unseat a current dictator. Don't do it, because they'll disappear you. But nonetheless, here's another idiot Democrat blaming Trump for something he has no part in.
Why did Navalny all of a sudden die at this point in time? I first of all agree with President Biden that Russia is responsible for his death. Also, what happened in the few days leading up to his death? Well, we had former President Donald Trump essentially say that Russia should attack European countries. That is crazy. That is traitorous language. Russia certainly was listening, and I think they thought, hey, we now have a green light to do all sorts of crazy stuff. And if Trump would be president, Putin would have even more latitude.
Do these idiots not know how many times Trump says things in satire or rhetorical or just plain out of context for laughs? Do they understand that, kind of like the whole bleaching thing, that Trump says a lot of things sarcastically because he knows the left is going to use it as a headline and a clip. If it doesn't show that how messed up this world is right now, I'm not sure what would. They're already trying to show inappropriate content to kindergartners. Yeah. The last thing we need is a visual of a woman. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Women of ill repute. I think that what you meant. There's a lasting image. Yeah. So that was Ted Lieu saying that it's Trump's fault that Navalny was killed, even though Trump wasn't in anywhere near a Russian prison. They're using things that he says taken out of context. Now, he did say he doesn't care what Russia does. And while it might seem bombastic at first, that's the mindset of most Americans right now over this Russian-Ukraine conflict. I understand one end, okay? One end. I don't want Russia invading a country close to NATO partners. Got it. You can have that one opinion. Putin is a maniac. He's a murderer, and he will do his nastiness. On the other hand, I don't want us spending $150 trillion, bajillion, quadrillion dollars on a war we have no business being a part of and won't. Ukraine's not winning that war. So when Trump goes on these rants about, I don't really care what Russia does, they can do whatever the hell they want. You have to understand what Trump is saying and read between the lines. It's not that he says that Russia should do whatever he wants, because Ted Lieu, like he said, he's wrong. Ted, you're stupid, as is all of your lefty friends. Trump doesn't mean Putin gets to do whatever he wants, because if you look back before Biden administration, Trump didn't allow an invasion into Ukraine. Trump didn't allow a disastrous withdrawal to Afghanistan. Trump didn't allow inflation to get up to 9%. Trump didn't drain his strategic oil supply for a military emergencies response. Trump didn't stop the Remain in Mexico policy. Trump didn't imprison his political adversaries for simply existing. He could have. He could have gone after Hillary Clinton. He could have just locked her up, investigated the hell out of her just for fun. But he didn't, because there would have been no point. It's not going to go anywhere. What these idiots don't understand, it's like the bleaching thing. Can you put bleach inside your body to get rid of COVID? But that's not what he was saying. He was saying it in jest because of how these idiots think. That's what he does. He gets you to think. And if you say something, that means if you say something out of context, and you say something out of jest, that turns into a headline. Trump wants Navalny killed because Russia can do whatever it wants. That's your headline. That takes clicks. That's not what he said. It's out of context yet again, but nevertheless, Democrats always take what he says out of context. He's simply stating that while also true that he didn't allow Russia to do whatever it wanted with Ukraine, we don't have an interest in Ukraine, in this war with Ukraine. So why are we there? That was his point. And he does that through a way of saying it, like the way he did. All right. So one more thing. Here is Trump's actual response to his ruling. And this is the last thing I'll show you because it's serious, and it's always like Trump to do this when he comes out and has a moment of response, and it's good. It's a good response to what his ruling was about. So here is that response.
You build a great company. There was no fraud. The banks all got their money, 100%. They love Trump. They testified that Trump is great customer, one of our best customers. They testified beautifully. And the judge knows that. He's just a corrupt person. And we knew that from the beginning. We knew it right from the beginning because he wouldn't give it to the commercial division. This judge thought Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million and it's worth anywhere from 50 to 100 times that amount. So we realized that. He ruled against me before he even got the case. He ruled against me. He said I was guilty. He didn't know what I was guilty of before he even got the case. And Letitia James, that's another case altogether. She's a horribly corrupt attorney general, and it's all having to do with election interference. There were no victims because the banks made a lot of money. They made $100 million. And by the way, I paid approximately $300 million in taxes as the migrants come in and they take over New York. I paid over this period of years over $300 million in taxes, and they want me out. Oh, let's see if we can get them out. These are radical left Democrats. They're lunatics, and it's election interference.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's election interference. So there you have it. There's Trump's response to everything we already knew. Okay. All right, I'm going to wrap up. I know I'm going about an hour. I wanted to hit this update. It's been on for a little bit. I took about a week off. I had some other stuff going on, but that's where I want to leave you. Trump's latest legal escapade. Letitia James, obviously just as corrupt as the others that are going after him. That's the biggest one so far. $365 million fine potentially. So remains to be seen what we know from that going forward. That was the latest. They always drop things on a Friday, so stay tuned for Friday's news drop. All right, so where can you find me? Rumble, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. I have my website here up on the screen, RyanMaxShow.com. That is where you can get everything. I'm working on the audio piece. There's some reason with when I'm using Rumble Studio now, there's an issue with the audio version being displayed and coming through on the podcast side if you don't have video. So for now, RyanMaxShow.com. There's links to Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, all of that. Eventually, I'm going to try to get up the video side of it so you can get the videos involved. But RyanMaxShow.com. There might be merchandise coming forward. But for now, that is an all-in-one place that you can get to everything that you need for future episodes. And you can tune in live on Facebook, Rumble. Really kind of try to build up Rumble because as ScrewTube tries to limit everything I do, Rumble is going to be the primary form of content producing on this side because they stand for freedom of speech. And so do I. So RyanMaxShow.com. There you go for everything you need. Stay tuned on more on that end. So until next time, this is the Ryan Max Show.